I like being happy. I mostly consider myself to be a happy person, and I've been told that the only time I stop smiling is when I'm in the batter's box, at peak focus. There are many things I have to be happy about, but I found myself happiest when others tell their stories. Storytelling is a large part of my life, not because I myself tell stories, but because those around me often tell. Most notably, my father and my sister. But today, I'd like to share some of my stories. Now, y'all know that I like origami. There's a whole world out there full of people that share this passion. Every 2 years, there's this little thing called the Pacific Coast Origami Conference, or PCOC, Peacock for short. I went just last year and met the Moses of the origami world, Robert J. Lang, so these gatherings are no joke. Way back in 2011, 5th grade Byron, who was somehow shorter and chubbier than freshman Byron, went with our very own Una McKnight to Seattle, Washington for the Peacock 2011. We got there and immediately felt ourselves immersed within the paper folding community. I got my hands on new types of paper, a new book, the author's autograph, but most importantly, I kept some valuable memories. We decided to attend the workshop that showcased this cube. Our teacher was from Japan and spoke very limited English. He was also very critical of us as his students. I remember him taking some poor beginner's paper out of their hands while shouting, "No, no, again!" All the while, I was thankful that I was already competent at origami at the time. When it came to the assembly of the various units, however, I made a slight mistake. I had simply assembled the units willy-nilly, negating the fact that our teacher had us choose a specific number of colors with a particular number of sheets per color. After completing my cube a little early, I set my new creation on the table for others to see. When the teacher saw it, however, to my horror, like an angry goose, he aggressively speed-walked over to the table and wrenched it apart, yelling, "No, no, again!" Not knowing what I did wrong, I stared at him blankly, utterly terrified. Having no idea how to say, "Please arrange the pieces as if everything of one color was the same strip," he began flailing several blue pieces in my face, shouting, "Look, look, see?" I was on the verge of tears. I was so scared and uncomfortable when a McKnight in shining armor came to my rescue. "I think he wants you to put those pieces in a line around the cube." And that was it. He was delighted to see our success. Una and I, being the first two to finish the project, were asked to take a picture with this new, proud, happy teacher of ours. What was rather horrific in the moment had turned into one of my entrance essays into essay, and now my senior speech. Now, I'd like to hop on over to the summer of 2012. We were out in the deserts of Arizona on the second of the 5-day road trip to our property in Osage County, Missouri, or as the locals call it, Missouri, or as everyone else calls it, misery. We were told by a ranger to look for the upside-down Mexican hat rock, and we'd find the next campsite, which was surprisingly helpful. We pitched the tent, settled in, and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to a quick exclamation by my father, who was exiting the tent to make coffee. He said he felt a little prick on his foot, which startled him more than anything. There was nothing in the tent, so we all just carried on with the morning. Soon, however, my father began sweating profusely. "You good, Dad?" "Oh, well, my leg is burning up and I can't exactly feel my lips," he said. "What?" We became mildly concerned, little 8-year-old Byron and 10-year-old Clara, but what could we do? We started packing up our things for the long day we had ahead of us when we got to the tent. When we raised it off the ground to begin packing it up, we unveiled the source of the mysterious foot prick. A scorpion had decided to spend the night underneath us. That thing stung my dad through the tent. We became concerned. "I'll be fine," he said with a rather unhinged look on his face. A brief Google search later showed that he'd been stung by an Arizona bark scorpion, one of the few in that area that are actually dangerous, of course. After getting back on the road with our only CD, American Idiot, blasting for the 8th time on that trip, we became very concerned. "Dad," my sister said, "you're going 98 miles per hour. "Oh, look at that," he answered, proceeding to slow down to 23. "Are you okay?" we asked him. "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just a little numb in the face and the leg." This man couldn't feel anything on his entire right side. We hurried to the nearest town, our speed oscillating from 87 to 35, back up to 103, and then down to 27. We arrived at a small place of around 8 buildings, and lo and behold, there was an ambulance driving slowly down the street. Now, it isn't like the Suarez family to encounter such good luck, so we parked and rushed over to the window. We waved to the driver, but he ignored us. We tapped on the window and got his attention, but I'll be damned if he didn't shoo us and look away. Seeing that we weren't gonna let up, he finally rolled down the window, but before we could explain the situation, he angrily shouted, "Get! You're ruining the parade!" And rolled his window back up. We were stunned. In all the excitement of that morning, we'd completely forgotten that it was the 4th of July, and that this singular vehicle was the entirety of this town's 4th of July parade. The 6 people that we finally noticed on the street to watch the event didn't seem too happy with us. Realizing the futility of trying to get that window down again, we went to the town's diner for some brunch. Not yet defeated, however, my father asked the waitress for advice after we ordered our food. "You been drinking coffee?" she asked him. "Yes," my father responded. "You're fine," she answered and walked off. It just so turns out that one of the best remedies for scorpion venom is a nice cup of joe. I personally have no idea if this is true, but I'm sure his largeness is probably what really saved him. Now, something that has always been a favorite of mine in Missouri was fishing. I love rivers, I love fish, I love casting, and you really never know what might happen on the water. When we lost our property in a flood, however, my dad and I thought it was over for us, until we were introduced to the fly fishing scene here in California. We just recently went to the Lower Sacramento River in Redding with some family friends for a guided trip for rainbow trout. So there we were, 3 drift boats anchored near the bank of the river on our lunch break, when someone decides to change their seating location. Now, there's a saying among the guides that more people fall out of an anchored drift boat than a moving one. This has proven to be true so far in my life. Our friend, Brooke, felt bad for having the front of the boat for the entirety of the trip and attempted to switch with the person in the back. She lost balance, however, and gracefully flipped backwards out of the drift boat, just as a scuba diver does into the ocean. We were all in shock, but we were quick to get her out of the 50-degree water. Being the nice people we were, everyone was offering extra layers for her to change into, but we only had extra jackets to offer. All except one. My guide, Steven, stood up and said, "I got an extra pair of long johns you can wear." "Oh, sweet, which bag's it in?" my dad asks, eager to assist. "This one," he says, and pats his waders. "I'm wearing them." Now, a lot of y'all have seen Zoolander, right? You remember the walk-off he has with Owen Wilson. The scene where Mr. Wilson says, "I gotta go full monk, man. Prayers, pray to the Great Spirit, and proceeds to remove his undergarments without removing anything else. Stephen did the exact same thing. He reached down, wiggled around a bit, and from deep within his drawers produced his warm pair of green camo long johns. "I only been wearing them for a couple of hours," he said triumphantly as he tossed the warm base layer over to the next boat. Nobody made any attempt to catch the warm and unfortunately somewhat damp underwear. They remained at the bottom of the boat for the remainder of the trip. I'm willing to bet y'all thought this story was going to be about a fish. Now, typically, I find myself to be the listener to stories of my father's, let's say, questionable expeditions to Bali, my sister's wild college tours, and just the endless stream of stories of the community. By listening to one another, we are respecting and honoring the people that are sharing. But today, I was able to be the teller. I thank everyone for listening to me. I've always felt heard and seen here at Sonoma Academy, and perhaps that is the ultimate source of my happiness here. Now, I look forward to listening to all of you. Thank you.